Go ahead.
Good morning. Today we are going to be learning about what buffers do in regards to acids and bases. So what we have here first is I just have a beaker with some water in it, and I'm going to use this pH paper to take the pH of our water. This is our distilled water that we've got in class. It looks to me to have a pH of around 5. And one of the reasons for that is there is no cap on it, so as it sits here, the carbon dioxide goes in the air, goes into the container, dissolves in the water, and forms carbonic acid, which acidifies it a little bit. So that's the pH of our distilled water. So what we're going to do now is we are going to add 1 milliliter of NaOH, sodium hydroxide, which is, hopefully you know, a base, to our water. And we're going to swirl it up a little bit. We're going to put a piece of pH paper in there, and we're going to measure the pH again. Okay. And this looks to me to be sitting right around a 9 for pH now. Okay, so we're going to put that to the side. We're going to take another milliliter of 0.1 molar NaOH out of the container. Going to add it, going to swirl, and take another measurement. And this looks to be somewhere between 10 and 11, I think. Let me see. Maybe more 11 and 12 there. So we're somewhere between 11 and 12. We're going to take a third milliliter of NaOH. 0.1 molar, add it, gonna swirl, we'll take pH with some pH paper again, and this appears to be sitting, looks to me to be around 13, okay, all right, and then we're gonna do that 2 more times. That is our 4th milliliter of 0.1 molar NaOH that we've added. I'm going to take the pH. And I don't know, that looks to be about at a 14 now. So we got 1 more to do. Last milliliter of NaOH added to our H2O, and still at a 14. So that is the impact of a base on the pH of water. So we'll put that to the side. We've got 3 more tests. So this is our second test. We've got pure water again, distilled water from our container that's been sitting open, so it's become acidified a little bit. Again, the pH just seems to be sitting right around a 5 for our pure water. Now this time what we're going to do, and I've got a different pipette for this, this time what we're going to do is we are going to test the effects of adding hydrochloric acid to the pH of our water here and see how quickly it changes. So we're going to add 1 milliliter of 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid at a time. There's our first milliliter. I'm going to take the pH. And that seems to be sitting between a 2 and a 3. Can you see it okay? Okay. All right. That was our first milliliter. Now we've got to add our second milliliter. Swirl it up. There we go. Take the pH. Yeah, it's a 2, I believe. Okay. So we're going to take our third milliliter. Swirl. pH. And a 1. And somewhere between a 1 and a 2. Okay. So this will be our 4th milliliter. Swirl it up. Take the pH. Yeah, it's definitely at a 1 now. Okay. And then our last milliliter. Added. Swirled. Check. Still at a 1. So that's our second test, testing the effects of hydrochloric acid, adding 1 milliliter of hydrochloric acid at a time to water to see what happens to our pH of our water. All right, we're going to repeat the same experiment, only we're going to use a different solution to add the NaOH and then HCl to. We're going to use this solution of a dihydrogen phosphate buffer. And so it's potassium dihydrogen phosphate. It is a buffer that we're going to add this NaOH to first. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the pH of our solution to start. And I'd say that this pH is right around a 6.5. Okay, so we'll put that here. I'm going to move the old pH paper out of the way. All right, so now we're going to measure the effects of the sodium hydroxide, adding 1 milliliter at a time again. To our phosphate buffer solution. So swirl it up, dip, and appears to be right at that 7 mark. So we'll put that here. That was our first milliliter. Second milliliter added. Check. Still sitting at about a 7. Okay. Third milliliter. Check it. Still looked like a 7. Yeah, okay, still looks like a 7. After 3 milliliters of sodium hydroxide, here is our 4th milliliter. Added. Swirl. Check. Still looks to be at a 7. I don't think that's an 8 yet. That's a 7. Okay, after 4 milliliters. And here is our 5th and final milliliter of sodium hydroxide. Added to our potassium dihydrogen phosphate. That's not there yet, no. That's still sitting at a 7. Okay. All right, there we go. The last experiment that we're going to do is testing the effects of 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid on adding it to our potassium dihydrogen phosphate buffer and testing the effects on the pH of our buffer after we do that. So first thing again, we need to make sure we take the pH of our buffer because this is a different solution. And it appears to be starting again at that like 6.5, kind of between 6 and 7. So this time we're going to add a milliliter of hydrochloric acid at a time. Add and swirl. Check. And that doesn't appear to be any different. It's still sitting right around that 6.5 mark. So another milliliter of our hydrochloric acid goes in, swirl, check. I think we're at 6 now. All All right, so we're sitting at 6. Add our third milliliter hydrochloric acid. Swirl it up. Make sure we get it mixed throughout. Check. Still appears to be sitting right at a 6. I don't think it's as orange as the 5 is yet, so we're still sitting on 6 after 3 milliliters. Another milliliter added. Swirling up real good. Six, I think. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay.
That's a 6.
Okay. So that's after 4 milliliters. So we've got 1 more milliliter to add. Swirl that up. And one last check. Go. Maybe a 5.5. All right, so that was our experiment with hydrochloric acid and our potassium dihydrogen phosphate buffer. Notice I was wearing my goggles the whole time. This is what I'll look like when you see me in class, because otherwise my mask fogs up my glasses. All right, have a good day, everybody.
Science.